Hello everybody, how are you today? How are you today? How are you today? Hello everybody, how are you today? I'm so happy to be with you. Hi again, dragonflies, it's Eileen. I have a story for you today. I'm going to use my refrigerator to tell the story, and I've got the book to tell the story. It's called Caps for Sale. But before we get started, I'm going to put on some caps myself. If you would like to do that, you could go do that too. Go run and find some caps and then come back and listen to the story. Okay, first I'm going to put on my Milestones baseball cap. Then I have another baseball cap to put on. Look who's that. Mickey Mouse. And then I have my Milwaukee Brewers baseball cap. I'm going to put that on the very top. Woof! Can you see all those? 3 caps on my head. Okay, let's get started. Once there was a peddler who sold caps. But he was not like an ordinary peddler carrying his wares on his back. He carried them on top of his head. First he had on his own checked cap, way underneath here. Then he had on a bunch of gray caps, and then a bunch of brown caps, and then a bunch of blue caps. And then on the very top, he had a bunch of red caps. He'd walk up the street and he'd walk down the street, holding himself very straight so as not to upset his caps. And as he walked along, he said, "Caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap." But one morning he couldn't sell any caps. He walked up the street and he walked down the street saying, "Caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap." But nobody wanted any caps that morning. He began to feel very hungry, but he didn't have any money for food. So, "I think I'll go for a walk in the country," said he. And he walked out of town, slowly, slowly, so as not to upset his caps. He walked for a long time until he came to a great big tree. "That's a nice place for a rest," thought he. And he leaned back little by little, slowly, slowly, so as not to disturb the caps on his head. And he leaned back against the trunk. Then he leaned up straight and he said, "I better check my caps first." And he checked, yep, his own cap was there, his own gray cap, checked cap, and then his gray caps, and then he felt the brown caps, and then he felt the blue caps, and he felt on the very top, he felt his red caps were there. Good. They were all there. And then he fell asleep. He slept for a long, long time. Oh, it was a really good rest. Do you guys like to sleep for a long time? I know sometimes you do. I know sometimes I do too. A good rest is always refreshing. Okay. And he finally woke up. And when he woke up, the first thing he did, as he stretched and he stretched, that felt good. But before getting up, he checked his caps to make sure that they were still in place. He put his hand up, but all he felt was his own checked cap. Where were the other caps? He looked to the right of him. He looked to the left of him. He looked behind the tree. And then he looked up into the tree. And guess what he saw? On every branch of the tree there was a monkey. and on the monkeys sat his caps. He wasn't sure what to make of that. And he looked up at them, and finally he spoke to them, and he said, "You monkeys, you," and he shook his little finger at him, and he said, "You give me back my caps." But the monkeys only looked at him and said, "Tsk, tsk, tsk, tsk." Well, the peddler didn't know what to make of that, and he was a little frustrated. So he shook his fist, and he said, "Hey, you monkeys, you give me back my caps." But the monkeys only looked at him and said, "Tsk, tsk, 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 tsk." Well, finally he was really upset, and he put both hands up, and he stomped his foot, and he said, "You monkeys, you give me back my caps." But the monkeys only looked at him, stomped their foot, shook their paws, and said, "Tsk, tsk, 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 tsk." Oh, the peddler was really, really frustrated. He didn't know what to do, and so finally he took off his own cap, and he threw it on the ground, just like that. Well, you know what happened? All of a sudden, all the gray caps and all the brown caps, all the blue caps, and all the red caps came flying out of the tree. The monkeys threw them down, just like the man had taken them off his head and threw them down. So the peddler picked him up and put them on neatly back on top of his head, one on top of another, and slowly, slowly he walked back to town. And he called, "Caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap." Okay, dragonflies, thanks for listening to my story, and I hope you have a good afternoon. I love you. Bye-bye.